GLC presents, brought to you by the donations of our faithful partners.
Shalom, I'm Eddie Chumney of Hebraic Heritage Ministries, and we welcome you today to our study on the Hebraic roots of Christianity. Now, we need to remember that when we're studying the Hebraic roots of Christianity, we must keep everything centered on Yeshua the Messiah. That is because it is written in Psalm chapter 40 and verse 7, "Then said I, Lo, I come, in the volume of the book, it is written of me." That verse is quoted in Hebrews in chapter 10 and verse 7, referring to Yeshua. Then Yeshua himself stated in Luke chapter 24 and verse 44, he said unto them, "These are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the Torah of Moses, and in the prophets, and in the Psalms concerning me." So Yeshua told us that the Torah, the prophets, and the Psalms are written of him. The Hebrew scriptures speak of him. Now, we have explicit verses in the New Testament that tells us how this is so. For example, John chapter 1 and verse 3 and Colossians chapter 1 verses 15 and 16 tells us that Yeshua created the heavens and the earth. Galatians chapter 3 and verse 16 tells us that Yeshua made covenant with Abraham. And by being believers in Yeshua as the Messiah, we are heirs of what was promised to Abraham. Galatians chapter 3 and verse 29. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verses 1 through 4, we're told it was Yeshua that led the children of Israel out of Egypt. He was the rock that was with them in the wilderness. And then Yeshua is the arm of the Lord, Isaiah chapter 53 in verse 1. And in Hebraic thought, the arm and the hand are synonymous because the arm or the hand represents power, it represents strength, and when you reach out your arm or your hand, it represents deliverance or redemption. And it was with the right hand that Pharaoh and his army drowned in the Red Sea, Exodus in chapter 15 and verse 6. Yeshua was the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night that led the children of Israel out of Egypt through the wilderness. And Yeshua is the glory of the Lord that filled the tabernacle. Regarding the tabernacle that was in the wilderness. Now, Yeshua is the Savior of the world. He is the King of Israel. John chapter 1 and verse 49. And we're told in James chapter 4 verse 12 that the one who saves is the lawgiver. And so from this we need to understand that it was Yeshua who gave the Torah at Mount Sinai. And at Mount Sinai, there was a marriage that was made. We're told that in Jeremiah in chapter 2, in verses 1 through 3, between the lawgiver, Yahweh Yeshua, and his bride, the house of Jacob, who he redeemed out of Egypt. But his bride, the nation of Israel, became unfaithful to the terms of the covenant. And as a result, she was exiled into the nations of the world. And who was it that exiled into the nations of the world? It was the lawgiver and the bridegroom. But the prophets tell us that the one who scattered the nation of Israel is going to gather her. In Jeremiah in chapter 31 verse 10, it says, "Hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He that scattered Israel will gather him, and keep him, as a shepherd does his flock." So the one that's going to gather the exiles of Israel is the Good Shepherd. And Yeshua himself stated he is the good shepherd. John chapter 10, verse 11. John chapter 10 and verse 14. And then in conversation with Pharisees who are Jews of the house of Judah in John chapter 10 and stating to them that he is the good shepherd, he explained in John chapter 10 verse 16 that he has another sheepfold besides them, the house of Judah. This other sheepfold would be the house of Israel, the northern kingdom, or the 10 tribes. He says, them also I must bring, they will hear my voice. That's a prophecy that the northern kingdom or the 10 tribes would be believers in Yeshua as the Messiah and hear his voice. In Exodus chapter 19, hearing his voice is being obedient and following his Torah. It's a prophecy that the northern kingdom or Ephraim would not only believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, but ultimately, in the fullness of time, realize that he's the lawgiver and thus follow his Torah. And then Yeshua said that from the two sheepfolds that there's going to be one sheepfold and one shepherd over them. He is that one shepherd. And then in order to ultimately physically gather the exiles of Israel, first he needs to forgive their sins for breaking the covenant. That's why he says in John chapter 10, verse 17, therefore does my Father love me, because I laid down my life. And then in dying to forgive the sins of the exiles of Israel, that forgiveness of sins is extended to the entire world, and they can join the covenant that Yeshua makes with his people, known as the New Covenant, by being grafted into it. When you're grafted into it, you become a part of it. The New Covenant, or the renewed covenant, was made with the house of Jacob. It was made with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31, Hebrews in chapter 8, verse 8. So if you're not physically descended from the 12 tribes of Israel, if you're from the nations, and if you are grafted in, you are an heir of the covenant that was made to the 12 tribes of Israel. As Paul explains in Ephesians in chapter 2, in verses 11 and 12. So with that background, we need to understand that we're told in John in chapter 11, verses 49 through 52, that Yeshua died to take two nations who are the children of God scattered abroad and make them one. And we are learning and understanding through this program that Yeshua's first coming was all about teaching us his role to gather and unite the 12 tribes of Israel, and the New Testament is writings to give us details of how that is going to happen. And in Yeshua's earthly ministry, while the things that we're told regarding it were literal things that happened, at the same time, it's a prophetic foreshadowing of his role that will be fulfilled at his second coming to gather and unite the 12 tribes of Israel. So, in last program, we were looking at John chapter 11 and the resurrection of Lazarus. And we are going through this chapter and the verses and breaking down the information that we're told in using the Scripture to define Scripture. So we looked at John chapter 11, verse 1 in our last program. We're going to continue there in this program where it says, a certain man was sick named Lazarus. So we went over that Lazarus means whom God helps. And whom God helps is the nation of Israel. He helps them by dying to forgive them of their sins, make a new covenant with them, and he's going to gather and unite the 12 tribes of Israel. And that Lazarus is sick. And we looked at Scripture in the last program that communicated to us that the spiritual condition of the exiles of Israel for breaking the covenant is they're regarded as sick, and that Lazarus was from the town of Bethany. Bethany means the house of the poor, or the house of the afflicted. And then we looked at scriptures to show how the spiritual condition and status of the exiles of Israel for breaking the covenant is they are regarded as being poor, afflicted, and needy. So we're going to continue on part 2 of this program by looking at John chapter 11, verse 1, and we're going to see here that Lazarus is from Bethany, which is also the town of Mary and her sister Martha. So ultimately, as we go through this chapter, we will be learning that Martha is a prophetic picture of Christianity, and Mary is a prophetic picture of Judaism. And the attitude of Judaism and Christianity toward the role of the Messiah, Yeshua, to gather and unite the exiles of Israel. But first, let's connect how Mary and Martha are associated with the two houses of Israel. The house of Israel, the northern kingdom, or Ephraim, and then the southern kingdom. Notice that they are sisters. And so regarding the northern kingdom and southern kingdom, it is stated of them, Ezekiel 23 and verse 2, Son of man, there were 2 women, the daughters of one mother. And the names of them was Ohalah the elder, and Oholibah her sister. They were mine, and they bare sons and daughters. Thus were their names. Samaria, which is the northern kingdom, or Ephraim, is Ohalah. And Jerusalem, or the southern kingdom, is Oholibah. So we're told regarding Samaria and Jerusalem, northern kingdom and southern kingdom, that they're regarded here and likened in Ezekiel chapter 23 as sisters. So Mary and Martha are sisters. Now, let's look at the meaning of the words Mary and Martha from John chapter 11, verse 1. In the Strong's Greek dictionary, Mary is the Strong's number 3137. And Mary, or the Hebrew word would be Miriam, means their rebellion. And Martha is the Strong's Greek number 3136. And it likewise means she was rebellious. So the names of Mary and Martha, taking it back to the Hebrew, means to be rebellious. And being rebellious is how the prophets describe the exiles of Israel for breaking the covenant and not returning to their lawgiver, or being stubborn in returning to their lawgiver and doing his will. So let's see how the nation of Israel, in breaking the covenant at Mount Sinai, are regarded by the prophets as being rebellious. We're going to look at Ezekiel in chapter 2 and verse 3. He said unto me, Son of man, I send you to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that has rebelled against me. They and their fathers have transgressed against me even unto this day. Verse 2 of Ezekiel in chapter 12. Son of man, you dwell in the midst of a rebellious house, which have eyes to see and see not. They have ears to hear and hear not, for they are a rebellious house. So Mary and Martha, whose names mean rebellious, are likened unto the nation of Israel in breaking the covenant at Mount Sinai. So they are spiritual picture of northern kingdom and southern kingdom. Now let's look at John chapter 11 and verse 3. It says, therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love, referring to Lazarus, is sick. The one that you love is sick. So we're going to now look and see that the one whom the God of Israel loves is the nation of Israel. And by breaking the covenant, she is sick. Let's see how the God of Israel loves his people, the nation of Israel. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. For you are a holy people unto the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Verse 7. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because you were more in number than any other people, for you were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you is why he chose you. And so it is the nation of Israel whom the God of Israel, Yahweh Yeshua, loves. So John chapter 11 and verse 3, the one whom you love is sick. So that literally was speaking of Lazarus, but is a prophetic picture of the nation of Israel. And being sick is the spiritual condition of the exiles of Israel for breaking the covenant. Now, Yeshua is going to explain that the reason why Lazarus is sick is so that Yeshua may be glorified. Because when he gathers and unites the 12 tribes of Israel, he is going to be glorified. John chapter 11, verse 4. When Yeshua heard that, he said, this sickness, now he was literally speaking of Lazarus, but prophetically he's speaking of the nation of Israel and their exile. The sickness is not unto death. In other words, breaking the covenant and Israel being scattered in the nations is not an eternal punishment. It is not unto death. But it is for the glory of God, that the Son of Man might be glorified thereby. It's for the purpose of the glory of God. So let's see how the nation of Israel is exiled so that the God of Israel, the Messiah of Israel, may be glorified. Isaiah chapter 44, verse 23. Sing, O you heavens, for the Lord has done it. Shout, ye lower parts of the earth, break forth into singing, you mountains, O forests, and every tree therein. For the Lord has redeemed Jacob, that is gathering of the 12 tribes of Israel, and glorified himself in Israel. So we see the association of redeeming Jacob, gathering the 12 tribes of Israel, and the one who does it being glorified. Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 3. He said unto me, you are my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Now, we're going to continue to look at this principle that the Messiah is glorified when he gathers and unites the 12 tribes of Israel, or when he redeems his people. So because Yahweh Yeshua is the one that redeemed his people out of Egypt, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, 1 through 4, when he did it, he received glory. But he's going to redeem his people from all the nations where they've been scattered and will receive glory again. And so we're now going to look at John chapter 12 and verse 28, where it says, Father, glorify your name. Then came there a voice from heaven saying, I have both glorified it, and I will glorify it again. Father, glorify your name. I've already done it. Father, glorify your name. I will do it. He did do it, but he will do it. Well, when did he glorify his name? When he redeemed his people out of Egypt. When will his name be glorified? When he gathers them from the nations of the world. So what is the name of the God of Israel in Hebrew? It is the Hebrew letters Yod, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And we have that here for you. The name of the God of Israel, Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. We're reading from right to left in Hebrew. Now, the letter Hey, there's two Heys in Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. And the letter Hey is the letter that brings glory to something. So in the name of the God of Israel, there's two letter Heys. There's two glories in his name. So Yod in Hebrew means hand or deliverance. It's a reference of redeeming his people. So Yod Hey is going to represent the deliverance of his people from Egypt, or the deliverance of his people in Yeshua's first coming when he died on the tree to forgive his people of their sins and forgive the sins of the world. But in order for his name to be fully known, and in order for his name to be fully glorified, you have to combine the Yod and the Hey with the Vav and the Hey. Now Vav is the Hebrew letter that means and, or to connect something. So you take the Yod and the Hey, first coming, or also you may look at it as the deliverance from Egypt. And it's only when you add the letter Hey, which means and you combine it with the glory that comes following, which is his second coming, or the glory associated with redeeming his people from Israel. And then we have the name of the one who redeems his people fully known to his people and to his world, and to the world. So that's why we have the principle that the redeeming of his people brings glory to his name, and the revealing of the name of the Redeemer to his people and to the world. So let's see how we're told in the Torah that glory came to the one that redeemed his people from Egypt. Exodus chapter 15, verse 1. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. So we're speaking about Pharaoh and his army drowning in the sea. And in Exodus chapter 15, verse 6, the one that does it is the right hand. So in speaking about this, Pharaoh and his army drowning in the Red Sea, Exodus 15, verse 2, it says, the Lord is my strength and song. He has become my salvation. And the King James says, he is my God, and I will prepare him a habitation, is what the King James says. Well, the Hebrew here is the Strong's number 5115. It's the Hebrew word navah. And the word means to beautify or to glorify. And I will beautify or I will glorify him is really the root meaning in the Hebrew. And this is how the rabbis see that this verse says in the Hebrew. I'll show that to you in the Hebrew or the Jewish prayer book, the Art Scroll Siddur, on page 79, where it says, this is my God, and I will build him a sanctuary. It says, based upon the Hebrew root, another way that you could translate this is, I will beautify or glorify him. I will beautify or glorify him. This is also mentioned in the book, The Wisdom in the Hebrew Alphabet, on page 93, where it says, and it's rendered, this is my God, and I will glorify him. And so, Father, glorify your name. Oh, I've already done it. When did I glorify my name? I glorified your name when I brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. Father, glorify your name. Oh, I will do it again. And when is he going to glorify his name again? When he gathers and unites the 12 tribes of Israel. And so this is the meaning behind Yeshua's prayer in John chapter 17, verse 21. I pray that they may be one. That is the unification of the 12 tribes of Israel. And it says that the world would believe that you sent me. Why would the world believe? Because the redemption of his people is the revelation of the name of the one who redeems his people, and glory being given to the one who does it. So now look, that they may be one. John 17:22. And the glory which you gave me, I have given them. Notice, I pray that they may be one. And the glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I and them, and you and me, that they may be perfect in one, that the world may know that you have sent me, and you have loved them as you love me. And so in John 11, it says, it was said to Yeshua, the one whom you love is sick. And Yeshua is going to go to Lazarus. He's going to resurrect Lazarus, which is a prophetic picture of gathering and uniting the 12 tribes of Israel, as we are breaking down, developing, and showing you this prophetic picture. And when he gathers and redeems his people, it's going to be revealed and shown to them that he loves them, and they are going to love him. Well, that concludes our study for today. Remember 1 John chapter 2, verse 6. He who says he abides in him, in Yeshua, ought to walk as he walked. How did Yeshua walk? He followed the Torah. Believers in him should do the same. Shalom. In Yeshua the Messiah. Amen.